we're going to tier rank every single Sarah J Maas book ever written. Okay, maybe not every Sarah J Maas book ever written, but the ones that matter. Our 5 categories are chokehold. This book had an absolute chokehold on me. I had to put it down multiple times. The book put me into a reading slump. I think about it regularly. Chokehold. Then we have good memes. These are books that I look back on and I'm like, oh, that was just a really good book. That's that category. It wasn't amazing, but it also wasn't bad. Maybe I can't say anything negative about it, but it definitely doesn't stand out. Then why? It's a good book, but some things here and there just don't sit right with me. Then for no thanks, these are books that actually made me mad when I finished them. And yes, believe it or not, despite the fact that I'm a huge Sarah J Maas fan, there may be 1 or 2 no thanks books in here. Starting with Throne of Glass. I absolutely adored this book. It obviously was the first book I read in the whole series and the book that made me fall in love with Sarah J Maas. So this one is going to go into good memes. It only doesn't put me in a chokehold because compared to all the other Sarah J Maas books, it's not like above and beyond crazy good. When I first read it, it was. And then I had my eyes opened to a beautiful series. As for Crown of Midnight, I'm actually going to put this one in it. It was good. I would never say it was a bad book. It was a good book. But compared to all the others, it really just doesn't compare. I often forget what this book is about, frankly. Sadly. I will say it does have some really amazing moments, but I feel like they're so few and far between. This is spoiler free, but for those who have seen it, you know that something really eventful happens in this book that really kind of changes the main character's life. I actually really struggled to emotionally connect to what happens. If you know, you know. If you don't, that's fine. Nothing has been spoiled for you, so you're all good to go. For Assassin's Blade, this I might actually make some people mad because I already had some people mad in my comments that I said you shouldn't read this book first. I stand by what I said. I'm gonna put this in the why. Honestly, I think there's 5 or 6 short stories in there. Only really 2 or 3 of them I actually was really engaged in. The other ones, not so much. As for Heir of Fire, I'm actually going to put this in good memes. I know this is a lot of people's favorites in the Throne of Glass series, so please don't come after me. I feel like it just took me out of the story a little bit. I usually don't like reading action in books, but for some reason, Sarah J Maas really writes good war and action scenes. But for some reason, the action scenes in Heir of Fire just did not really compute with my brain. That's definitely a personal thing. Queen of Shadows, however, had an absolute chokehold on me. I did read this book for a 24-hour reading challenge. Most people said that was a bad idea because it's a bigger book, but honestly, it's so fast-paced, so good. So much happens, so many plot twists. Reading this book truly felt like watching a movie. I don't know how else to describe it. It just lives rent-free in my brain. Empire of Storms, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna do the tandem read all at once because to me it's just one giant book. And I'm actually gonna put the tandem read in chokehold. Honestly, if I was looking at each book individually, I think I would put it in good memes, but because I read them in tandem, and if you don't know what tandem read is or you're a little confused about what that is, I also talk about it in this video. Individually, I think both the books would be good memes, but when you read them together, they really just feed off of each other in the best possible way. I could not imagine reading it any other way and enjoying it as much. Now this one, I'm gonna put Kingdom of Ash in good memories. I will say the ending of the book, obviously it's the end of a huge book series. It's gonna have a chokehold on you. If it doesn't, you just wasted so much time. It does leave you in a chokehold. The only thing is, and I'm gonna make so many people mad, the book can be really frustrating because it is slower, probably the slowest of all the books. It's obviously totally worth it when you get to the end, but I don't think the book needed to be 980 pages. I think it could have been 700, honestly, and still have everything in there. Now for A Court of Thorns and Roses. Starting with ACOTAR, good memes. Aesthetically, I think this is a beautiful book. It's really hard to talk about these books in a spoiler-free way while giving honest reviews, but I'll just say there is a fairly main character that I do not love. You pick up very quickly that this book is a fairy tale retelling, and 75% of the book is extremely predictable. Mind you, the last 25% really just throws you for a curveball, and it's really, really good. And I absolutely love the last bit of this book, and that's the only reason that these books went from okay to I absolutely love them. If you're a sucker for romance, you're gonna love the book. It's probably gonna be in Good Men's or Chokehold for you, but for me, when I first read ACOTAR, it was one of the first like really romancy books that I ever really got into. For ACOMAF, ooh, ACOMAF. This is a struggle. I think, oh, this is so hard. Wait, I'm gonna put ACOMAF in Chokehold. It might be my favorite ACOTAR book, so I feel like this is fair. This is a good rating. Especially the last chapter. Had my jaw on the floor, and you know when you just have to close the book and put it down and just contemplate what you read for a minute? That was me. I really had to take some time to process how this book ended, and then also throughout the entire book, you fall in love with so many characters. I feel like it's really common for authors to have like 3 or 4 main characters. It feels like there's 10 main characters in this book, and you just grow to love all of them. So it's definitely like warm and cozy, but it also just has a really good plot. Spoiler free, so I won't say, but there are some really good tropes in here, and I'm not going to say what kind of trope because I honestly think that gives away a lot of the plot if you say what kind of trope it is, because you're literally saying how it begins and how it ends. But I will say there are multiple golden tropes in this book. A Court of Wings and Ruin. I want to put this in Chokehold, but I think I'm gonna leave it in Good Mems. Love how the book starts, obviously, because of how the second book ends. I will say, kind of like Kingdom of Ash, I don't think it needed to be as long as it was, but definitely one of my favorites in the series. Probably my second favorite. A Court of Frost and Starlight. This one, I think I'm gonna put in Y. I get it, and I think it's cute, and there are some parts of it that are good, and I do think are important to read. A lot of novellas you don't have to read before reading the next book. This is one that I think you definitely should. It was definitely very fluffy. I didn't feel like it had a lot of substance, if that makes sense. I feel like that's a good way to say it. This is where I'm gonna make some people really, really mad, but hear me out. Oh, I'm so afraid of how many people are gonna be so mad at me saying this. A Court of Silver Flames. I'm putting in no thanks. Now, hear me out. I know there are some people who like die hard love A Court of Silver Flames, and I get it. I really do. And I've heard people's reasoning for why they love this book, and I totally understand it. I do. And I don't think this isn't a spoiler, so I feel like I can say this. This book really showed Sarah J Maas's lack of understanding of fitness. Please tell me why an hundreds of year old fae with supernatural strength who also like commands armies, please explain to me why him doing a 5-minute plank is impressive. Like, I couldn't do a 5-minute plank. I couldn't. I could do a minute. I've met human beings who can do 5-minute planks, and they're very strong. But do they have supernatural fae strength? Is another fae in this book who's a younger fae, but they still have supernatural strength. And they can't do 20 lunges. 20 lunges? I couldn't enjoy the book because of so many situations like that. There's a thing where she has to go down, not up, down, like I think 10,000 stairs, which, yeah, that's a lot of stairs, but she can't make it. What number is it? Is it like 100? She goes down a certain amount and has to give up because it's too hard for her. You have supernatural strength and you can't go downstairs. Also, they talk about these female warriors, the initiation in order to be considered a part of this like elite female warrior tribe. The only thing that they had to do to be initiated into that tribe was cut a ribbon with a sword. Also, there is like a romantic couple in that book, and I don't think they're a healthy couple. Oh, that's where I know I'm gonna make so many people mad, because I know some people are like diehards for this couple and they think they're the best couple in the whole book. Anyone who actually cares at this point has probably already clicked off this video because I've offended them so deeply. But I will say, I have hope that in the next Sarah J Maas book that we will see things take a healthier turn for these characters. And a big part of this book is about their healing. I know that. But because everyone was so toxic in this book, I struggled to read it. Toxic behavior is hard to read and enjoy. It definitely sounds like Sarah J Maas is planning on giving this character a redemption arc, and I really hope that they do. And I think I could really get on board with this character. As of right now, I feel like I haven't actually seen that redemption arc. I'm gonna add this right now. If you disagree with my opinions on anything, totally fine, but please do not put any spoilers in the comments. Please don't be that person. That's all I ask. Now onto the Crescent Cities. For Crescent City 1, absolute chokehold. When I tell you, yes, first 6 chapters, miserable. Get through the first 6 chapters, you'll be in a chokehold by then. As soon as the plot takes off, it takes off. Yeah, I think there's slow moments here and there, but honestly, the last 150 pages of this book was just moment after moment after moment of me just having my jaw on the floor. I kept having to put this book down. The day I finished this book, I canceled my plans for the evening because I was just contemplating what I read. Consider that also your warning before reading this book if you haven't yet. It's so good. Now, A House of Sky and Breath. I'm gonna put this in good mems. I did another book vlog where I read this book, which is also spoiler free. Honestly, probably one of my favorite book challenges I've done. I read this book in less than a week. And it was really, really good. I honestly loved it. The only reason it's not in chokehold is that it doesn't compare to Crescent City 1. It really doesn't. It's really good. And of course, I'm sure you've heard by now, even if you haven't read it, that like the last chapter had everyone screaming and freaking out. The last chapter wasn't enough for me to put it in the chokehold section. Like I said, it was really, really good. I actually really want to reread it, but it just didn't have the same effect on me as the other one did. And now for House of Flame and Shadow. I am actually putting this book in no thanks. I'm gonna keep this spoiler free. This book was so overhyped to be like the Sarah J Maas book to end all Sarah J Maas books. Honestly, I think a lot of the theories that were made on TikTok and online are significantly more exciting than what ended up actually being written. When I first read that Sarah J Maas had written this entire book, decided she didn't like it, hit Control-Alt-Delete, and then rewrote the entire book in 2 weeks, I was thinking that this had to be the most amazing book, so inspired, like the creativity was flowing. There's no way this couldn't be the best book yet. Unfortunately, this book did feel like it was written in 2 weeks. I can only think of 2 plot twists that were actually exciting to me. They were for a side character. Honestly, the main character of the Crescent City books has been one of my favorites, in my top 3, and unfortunately, her way of thinking, her attitude, her everything in this book was just not it. The main love interest, who we're all supposed to be crazy about, was also the same. I feel like no one was themselves in this book. It didn't feel like the characters were true to who they were in the previous 2 books. This was very sad to me. I do feel like the book did open up a lot of possibilities for the 4th Crescent City book, and so I'm really hoping that that book is what we all hoped House of Flame and Shadow would be, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be getting my hopes up for that one.